So I might be getting some focus back with my webcam, and I think I just want to begin today with some lamentations on Spiralvent on the website that's forever under construction, and but with some content on there, and some stuff going on. I've been seriously considering writing. I haven't put my hand to paper yet, or pen to paper is the exact term, but I think with some writing you have to leave some amount of mystery. I've been noticing different writing styles, and I'm not just talking about different writers, I'm talking about like actual different styles of writing. So poetry and poetry and prose and newspaper articles and books and things like that. So I think my writing style so far has usually been somewhat I'd say kind of solid, but it's really been limited to just commentary, just small comments, snippets of information that I pull from articles that I've read. And I think if you look at Spiralvent, you'd notice that most of what's on there is basically commentary on articles pulled from various sources: The Guardian, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, etc. I tend to stick to mainstream media just because it's what I trust most, and I know for a lot of people their hands are going up in the air saying, "Oh my God, what the hell did he just say?" But I don't know. For now, that's where I feel safe. There's a few that I post from, obviously, like I just mentioned, The Guardian, that kind of comes from the UK, etc. But mostly for local news, I stick to the Star, the Globe and Mail, blah blah blah. And every now and again, I see something really interesting that may come from Pathos or Pathos, however you pronounce it, and other ones like Raw Story, Huffington Post, etc. And to tell you the truth, some of the more interesting ones actually do come from the lesser news outlets. Obviously, I post podcasts up there that I find relatively interesting, and so. But it's a real mix of stuff that I put up there, and my writing specifically speaking. In case you haven't noticed, I haven't made such a lengthy blog post in the last little while, and I've just been commenting on other sources. But I think the comments are somewhat solid, sometimes a little bit redundant, but there's a certain amount of bravery I would have to kind of step really outside of those lines, and especially undertake something like a research paper and something that's more than some sort of very personal blog post. So that's where I am with the writing. But what I really wanted to talk about today was actually something concerning one of the posts I had put up there. It was actually a report put up by Atheist Alliance International, and it was basically the gender balance study that they had done or at least had compiled in March of 2016. And there was some news around the report, not within the report itself, talking about references to misogyny and sexism within atheism, and I found the report really interesting. They themselves said it was not an exhaustive report. It was it was basically a summary of some of the polling questions that they had put out, and they just kind of basically gave somewhat of a summary as to why there was a gender imbalance when it came to representation in atheist institutions around the world, or at least the ones they're affiliated with. So, generally speaking, I think this is kind of known, although it may have been reconfirmed in the study, especially now, March of 2016, that women tend to be underrepresented in atheist institutions, and obviously, I think that's also reflective of the population in general. The United States is a bit of an anomaly with pretty much everything. The most powerful country in the world, but yet has all these, all these murders and all these, shootings, and religion is fervent in the United States. And based on a recent article I had just read as well, there tends to be this massive economy behind religion as well. And I think the study I'm citing, it's on Spiralvent, was talking about simply the United States. It's a $1.2 trillion industry, which makes it the 15th largest economy in the world. So, and I believe they were just talking about the United States, and I think there were a lot of stuff, a lot of things that they left out. I think they didn't really account for some hard assets that might be held by religious institutions. Plus, they were talking about religion in general as opposed to religion specifically Catholicism or Christendom, if you could call that one religion, or Islam, etc. There's a real incisiveness and a real entrepreneurship that comes with religious undertakings in the United States. But in the population in general, I think women are kind of underrepresented when it comes to atheism. Without saying that I've read tons about it, I'd say that I agree with the Atheist Alliance report that basically states that there's a certain amount of inhibition when it comes to the male declaration that there is no God. Women tend to and have traditionally been in very safe type roles, child rearing. I'm citing the report. And therefore they value safety, etc. And anything that would seem to break up social cohesion, especially if it comes to religion, they tend to shy away from it. And I don't know how much I believe that, but I do believe there's an element of truth to it. I also think that generally speaking, when it comes to feminism now, I think there is there's this revivalist attitude when it comes to inhabiting old power roles or patriarchal power structures. I think women generally, and this is very general, women tend to want to get into the traditional power structures kind of built by men as a way of assuming power in society, now that they are aware of that power and are aware of what can be done and what can't be done, especially considering how many rights they fought for and won in the last 50 years somewhat. When it comes to misogyny, a lot of people tend to think atheism has this really male bent, and that there's this inherent misogyny or sexism in it, but there really isn't. It's just out of purely societal factors that traditional societal factors that, and even women themselves. I think there's a real boost in terms of occupying, like I said, traditional power structures within society in general. Religion being a major one. You think about women within Catholicism fighting to be priests. Women within Islam. There are certain mosques out there. Recently in the UK, there was the first mosque opened where a woman was leading prayer. I think exclusively women in that case, but there's other mosques that have no gender segregation, things that apply directly to women being on the pulpit. What I'm trying to say is I think there's a real push when it comes to women to move into, like I said, I keep repeating myself, but move into old power structures. I don't think that's completely right to say, but I think for most it would be that way. I think there's still, like the Atheist Alliance international report cited, there's this inhibition to make bold statements like there is no God. One article that comes to mind, and it's a story that's been popping up every now and again in Toronto, is the Vosper case with the United Church of Canada. I could have that wrong, so it's on the website. Go look it up. But the idea of her being atheist and being a minister an ordained minister in the church, like, it just doesn't jive well with the board. Or with the whoever is in charge of basically maintaining ministerialship. So she's atheist. She still believes that she deserves to be a minister in the church, and she I think she's going to be defrocked out of being atheist, and I think that says something very powerful about atheism, and not specifically about being female in this case, but it says something very powerful about atheism, and maintaining roles in traditional power structures as well. So that's a little interesting case, but I don't want to go on and on about it. So essentially speaking, Ayaan Hirsi Ali is probably, and I should know more about this as well, but she just strikes me as, one woman that has crossed that line. She seemed to have come from a very, very conservative line of Islam and sort of made it into this very atheistic way of thinking. In fact, she's renowned for being atheist. And she's been through different institutions and different roles throughout her life, especially through her immigration from Africa to the Netherlands, etc., etc. And she eventually came to atheism, and she definitely stands out as one of the more prominent female atheists, and she is unapologetic about it. I can tell you, based on what I've read, she seems very unapologetic about it. Very brave with it. She did that film with Theo Van Gogh in the Netherlands. I forget the name. It's based on Islam. It's called, but it was kind of depicted female bodies with different images all over it. Got into trouble for that. Has security now, blah blah blah. Was escorted by security anyway. I'm not sure in the US what's going on, but anyway, she just comes across as a very brave female, but she comes across as, she keeps popping up on my Facebook feed. There are others, but the others don't. There are other female atheists, but they seem to be much more vocal on the side of science and education, much more so than atheism. Atheism, as it's been said, has been somewhat of an old boys club. And I think maybe there's some truth to that, but the point being is, there is an underrepresentation, but I think that it definitely does not speak to any sort of inherent sexism or misogyny within atheism. I think some may get blamed for those things. Maybe in my comment about women trying to inhabit old patriarchal power structures as a way of reclaiming power, etc., now that they know what's available and what is really within their grasp without getting too crazy. And I don't want to say that women can't get crazy. They can. I'm just, in a good way is what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, generally speaking. So anyway, that's my post. That's my video. I don't want to go on too much about it. There's tons and tons that could be said about it. I would love to do lengthier writings about these things. I am, like I said, in some sort of purgatory. I just can't bring myself out of this funk that I need to get out of. But I've made some conclusive decisions recently. I've said, there are certain things that I can't do. There's some burdens I just cannot shoulder without it impacting other people directly, and I think it's unfair to both me and them. So I think it's conclusive. One of the decisions I've made, and I think that's going to be a thing going forward. I'm not going to backtrack on it anymore. God knows I've done it in the past, and I'm not gonna. I just won't. I'm not going to backtrack. I'm not going to reconsider anything. It's a done deal. I know I'm being vague, but it's for a good reason. Anyway, that's about it. Bye.